It was just another night. A quiet street, somewhere on the edge of the city. Not quite asleep, but no longer awake either. The kind of place where streetlights flicker longer than they should, and where nothing ever seems to happen, until something does. Elena didn't know her life was about to change. She didn't even know she'd ordered the wrong ride. She just wanted to get home. It was raining. That kind of slow, soaking rain that makes the air feel heavier than the moment itself. She waited beneath a dim awning, gripping her jacket tighter, glancing at her phone. Driver arriving in 3 minutes. She exhaled, tired, not broken, just tired. Moments later, a black car pulled up, sleek, quiet, out of place here. She stepped forward, assuming it was hers. No license plate check, no name confirmed, just habit, exhaustion, and the need to leave the night behind. The door unlocked without a sound. She got in. Inside, it was warm. Too warm. The leather seats too smooth. A man sat behind the wheel. He said nothing. No greeting. No small talk. He didn't look at her. Not fully. Just a single glance. Enough to register her presence, but not enough to make her feel watched. Distant hum of engine starting. And yet, she felt strangely at ease. Maybe it was the silence, or maybe it was something else. She adjusted her bag, sighed, and said the first thing that came to her mind. "Sorry I'm late. The store took longer than I thought." No response, no nod, just the road unfolding in front of them. But she kept speaking, not because she needed to, but because the silence didn't feel empty. It felt safe. She talked about the cold weather, about the long day, about how some people were kind for no reason, and how that always caught her off guard. And still, he said nothing, not out of rudeness, not out of disinterest, but because, for the first time in a long time, someone was speaking without expectation, and he was listening, with intention. Elena didn't know who he was. She didn't know the man next to her was the CEO of a company with its name on half the buildings she walked past every morning. She didn't know that the suit jacket folded neatly in the back seat had been tailored in Italy, or that his watch cost more than most people's rent for the year. She didn't know, and she didn't care, because she wasn't there for who he was. She was just on her way home. Adrian, that was his name, didn't usually drive himself. Not anymore. Not since the world became too loud, too digital, too demanding. But tonight, he wanted silence. Tonight, he wanted to remember what it felt like to be unseen. And somehow, he found exactly what he was looking for. Scene transitions to driving through soft city lights, reflections of rain on windows. They didn't speak much after that, but something passed between them, not in words, but in the kind of quiet you only share when nothing needs to be said. Minutes later, she softly said, "You can drop me here." He slowed down. No protest. She stepped out, turned back briefly, like she wanted to say something but thought better of it. Then she walked toward the building, rain still falling, softer now. As he pulled away, her phone buzzed, vibrating phone. "Your driver is arriving now." Long pause. She stared at the screen, confused, motionless. Slowly, she looked back down the road, but the car was already gone. That night, she didn't just take the wrong ride. She stepped into the beginning of a story neither of them saw coming, and neither of them would ever forget. It should have ended there. A quiet ride, a polite misunderstanding, a moment between two strangers that vanished into the dark like every other story that was never meant to begin. But this wasn't that kind of story. because what Adrian couldn't stop thinking about wasn't her face. It wasn't the way she smiled or the quiet way she spoke. It was something far more dangerous. She didn't need anything from him, and in his world, that was rare. Office ambience, faint city sounds. Back in his glass tower office, surrounded by the kind of wealth most people only read about, Adrian found himself pausing, watching the raindrops slide down the windows. Meetings went on. Emails flooded in. His team discussed markets, numbers, projections. But his mind was somewhere else entirely, not because he was distracted, but because, for the first time in years, he had experienced something real, not curated, not filtered, not strategic. And now he wanted to know, was it just a moment or something else? 2 days later, he left. No security, no board approvals, just a single black car and a vague note to his assistant. "I'll be out of town. Send the usual donation to the youth center." That was the excuse. It always is for men like him, who've spent so long at the top, they forget how to walk on the ground without pretending to be someone else. But this time, it wasn't about business. It was curiosity. And curiosity has a strange way of pulling people toward truth. Scene shifts to a quiet market town. Morning haze, children laughing, muddy footpaths. Her name was Alina. He didn't know that then. All he knew was that she lived somewhere in a part of town where time moved slower and people didn't look past each other. They looked through. She wasn't at the same store, not in the same alleyway. But he waited, walked the streets, bought things he didn't need from vendors who didn't care who he was, until, finally, he saw her, laughing, holding a tray of secondhand books, surrounded by children who clearly adored her. She hadn't seen him yet, and he didn't call out. He watched, not like a stranger, but like someone trying to remember something he'd lost. Something like simplicity or stillness. She noticed him eventually, paused, confused. Then the question. "You again?" she asked, with a slight tilt in her voice. Half smile, half suspicion. "Are you following me? Or is this some kind of strange coincidence?" He smiles, shrugs. He said he was helping a foundation, working on a literacy program. She believed him, not because it sounded convincing, but because there was nothing to gain from lying and everything to lose from pretending. A quiet cafe, 2 mugs, steam rising between them. People pass outside the window, unnoticed. They sat in a small cafe tucked between a fruit stall and a mobile recharge shack. The walls were uneven, the table rocked, but the conversation didn't. She talked about the kids, how most of them didn't go to school but knew how to count better than adults. He listened, said little. Every now and then he asked a question, never about her past, only about what made her smile, and she answered with the kind of honesty that doesn't need to be rehearsed, the kind that's rare, the kind that feels heavier than gold, because it can't be bought. She didn't ask him where he worked. She didn't comment on his watch, or his voice, or the car that waited just around the corner. She just spoke to him like a man who drank too much coffee and liked to listen. And for some reason, that meant more to him than any award, deal, or press headline ever had. Soft, ambient fade, late afternoon light. That afternoon, they walked through the old bookstalls by the train station. She showed him a corner where street kids used to scribble poems on the walls. He touched one, gently, faded, but still there. And for a moment, he wondered, what if this was the version of himself that was always meant to exist? Not the empire, not the penthouse, just this, 2 feet on the ground, a girl with no idea who he was, and a conversation with no expectations. Later that day, she asked, "You don't talk much, do you?" He laughed quietly. "Maybe I'm just out of practice." She smiled. "Then you're lucky. Most people never stop talking long enough to notice they've said nothing." In that moment, something shifted. Not loudly, but definitely. Like a thread quietly pulling two lives closer, without either of them fully realizing. Adrian wasn't used to being seen, but now, he was starting to be. That day he left without asking for her number, and she didn't ask for his. But something had begun. And even though neither of them said it, they both knew this wasn't the last time they would meet. There are moments in life when two paths cross, not because anyone planned it, not because of grand designs or calculated moves, but because sometimes fate has a quiet way of bringing people together. For Adrian and Alina, these moments were unfolding slowly, unforced, unannounced, like leaves drifting on a calm river. They weren't looking for each other. Yet, time and again, their steps found the same spaces. It was in the small things, a nod across the street, a shared smile near the marketplace, a chance encounter at a dusty bookshop where stories stacked higher than the ceiling. Each meeting was a gentle unfolding. No pressure, no hurry. Just a simple presence. And in a world built on noise and demands, this quiet was revolutionary. She took him by the hand, not literally, but with her trust, and led him through her world. The library, where cracked shelves held more hope than expensive mansions ever could. The street corners where children painted dreams on cardboard and whispered secrets only the wind could carry. The hill overlooking the sunset, where she came to think, to breathe, to escape. Here, among simple things, he saw her as she was, not a prize to be won, but a person who lived with courage and grace. Adrian said nothing of his empire, his wealth, or the walls that separated him from the world, because she never asked, and because in those moments, those things didn't matter. He listened, he watched, and slowly, something deeper began to take root. It wasn't about fascination or desire or the kind of admiration that fades when the spotlight dims. It was something quieter, a recognition that sometimes what people really want is to be truly seen. She wasn't trying to impress him. She didn't need to. She was simply being herself, raw, honest, untouched by the world's expectations. And that impressed him more than anything money ever could. No contract could buy this. No luxury could replace it. No title could capture it. A subtle spark flickered between them, not loud or flashy, but steady. It was there in the way their eyes met for a heartbeat longer than expected, in the quiet moments when words faded and only presence remained, in the shared smiles, half-remembered jokes, and comfortable silences. No promises were made, no declarations spoken, just a quiet understanding, a fragile thread weaving two lives closer. Footsteps on gravel, soft laughter, and in that understanding lay all the power. For sometimes, love begins not with a grand gesture, but with simply showing up and choosing to stay present, even when the world tries to pull you apart. They walked side by side through that fading light, two people from different worlds, connected not by wealth or status, but by the simple act of being seen, as they truly were. And neither of them would forget how quietly their lives had begun to change. Sometimes, the truth arrives quietly, not with thunder or flashing lights, but in the still moments when the world feels like it's holding its breath. For Elina, the truth came like that, unexpected, sharp, and almost unbearable. She had been working that day, as she often did, helping clean and organize a youth center. The walls were freshly painted, the floors scrubbed clean, but it was the magazine left on a small table that caught her eye. A glossy, polished cover, bold letters screaming a name she thought she knew, but didn't. Adrian Cole, the man who built $1 billion empire. Her heart stopped. The man who had shared her meal, the man who had lifted the paintbrush beside her, the man who listened without judgment, was more than just a quiet presence in the background of her life. He was a titan of industry, a world she had only glimpsed from a distance. And suddenly, everything changed. Her mind raced. How could this be? The man who spoke so little, who never flaunted wealth, who seemed so ordinary, so grounded. Was this other person someone larger than life? Someone untouchable? Someone beyond her reach? The image in the magazine wasn't just a photo. It was a barrier, a reminder of the distance between their worlds. Her hands dropping the magazine. She felt a rush of emotions. Hurt, as if the foundation of her trust had cracked beneath her. Embarrassment, for having believed in something that might never have been real. Foolishness, for being drawn to a man who lived in a world so far removed from her own. And most of all, confusion about who he really was and who she thought he was. Long pause. Music softens into minimal piano keys. She stepped back from the table. Her hands trembled slightly. She didn't know if she wanted to confront him or if she wanted to disappear, to vanish into the very shadows where she had felt safe just days before. So she did what felt easiest. She walked away. Footsteps echo softly, the sound of a door closing. But the weight of that moment followed her like a shadow she couldn't shake. Because sometimes the hardest truth to face isn't what someone hides. It's what you realize they never told you. That day, two worlds collided. Not with anger or betrayal, but with quiet, aching distance. She had seen the man behind the mask, and the man she trusted was suddenly a stranger. And in that silence, the story they had begun to write suddenly felt fragile, like it might unravel before it could even begin. After truth reveals itself, silence often follows. It settles between two people like a fragile glass wall, clear yet unbreakable. For Adrian, that silence grew heavier each day. His world, once so loud and commanding, had suddenly softened. Meetings blurred into one another. Offers to appear on television, to lead new ventures, to expand his empire. All declined, because something far more important occupied his mind. Her words, her kindness, the honesty she gave without hesitation. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't see him as a name, a status, or a fortune. She saw him, the man beneath it all, and that vision haunted him. Meanwhile, Elena's world continued, unchanged in its simplicity, but charged with a quiet ache. She threw herself into the work she loved, organizing, teaching, building. But beneath the surface, there was a wound, not born from money or lies, but from the absence of truth. The man she had welcomed into her life had withheld the most important part of himself. Not out of malice, but perhaps out of fear. Fear that being seen meant losing the fragile connection they shared. She gave him everything she had, every story, every hope, every silent prayer whispered late at night. She trusted him in ways she hadn't trusted anyone before. But what did she really have in return? A version of him, carefully edited, incomplete, hidden behind walls she hadn't been allowed to cross. And that truth hurt more than any secret ever could. soft footsteps on concrete, a solitary figure walking. Distance grew, not in miles but in feeling. Two people who once shared moments now carried shadows between them. They were close, yet unreachable, together, yet alone. The story was far from over, but it was clear. Healing would require more than chance meetings, more than unspoken words. It would require truth, raw, unfiltered, and brave. She gave him all her truths, and he gave her a version of himself. A beginning, yes, but still a question. Could they bridge the distance? Or would the silence between them grow too loud to ignore? Sometimes, life brings people back together, not with fanfare or grand announcements, but with quiet moments that feel both fragile and inevitable. Alina had spent weeks preparing, organizing a fundraiser to breathe life into the literacy program that had become her mission. Every detail mattered: the invitations, the space, the voices that would tell stories worth hearing. But amidst the crowd, one presence was unexpected. Adrian, not in the spotlight, not seeking attention, just quietly present. A donor in the background, a gesture unseen by most, but felt by those who mattered. She noticed him, yet instinctively she looked away. The years of distance and silence had built walls, walls made not of bricks, but of doubt, of unspoken fears, and of truths left unsaid. She wasn't ready to cross them yet, so she kept to the crowd, to the laughter, to the cause she believed in. But he did not press. No words, no interruptions, just a silent gesture, a donation given quietly, an offering without expectation. Ambient sound shifts, quiet street outside, rain lightly falling. Outside, the world felt colder. He waited in the same black car, the one she had entered months ago by mistake. And when she finally stepped outside, the air between them held a different weight, not heavy with anger, nor thick with regret, but open, honest. She walked up, and in that moment, the years of silence found a voice. Adrian's voice was low, steady, unguarded. "I didn't lie to you. I just didn't want to be seen for what I owned." The words weren't excuses. They were truths, fragile, raw, and real. Alina's reply came quietly but with clarity. "I never needed your name. I needed your truth." Soft sound of a gentle breeze, as if carrying away old burdens. No drama, no grand declarations. Just two people, standing face to face, shedding the masks that had kept them apart. And in that space, between words, between breaths, the emotional walls that had long divided them began to fall. It was a moment of healing, of quiet forgiveness, and the beginning of something new, a bond built not on wealth or status, but on honesty and trust. Sometimes the strongest bridges aren't built with grand gestures, but with a willingness to stand vulnerable and true. That night, two worlds stopped being separate, and for the first time, they began to move forward together. There comes a moment in every story where choices speak louder than words, where the question isn't about changing someone's world, but about stepping into it. Adrian's journey was no longer about power or wealth. It was about presence, about standing beside someone, not above, not apart, but together. He became a silent partner in her work, supporting her vision with a quiet strength that asked for nothing in return. He didn't try to fix what she had built, because he understood that what she had was already whole, even if it wasn't perfect. Instead, he joined it, walking the same paths, sharing the same hopes, building something real. Together, they created a literacy hub, a place where dreams were written, where stories could take flight, and where hope wasn't just a word, but a living thing. It wasn't grand or flashy, it was honest, rooted in shared purpose and genuine care, a testament to what happens when two worlds choose connection over distance. And in that space, something beautiful took root. Their bond, once tentative, fragile, and filled with unspoken fears, deepened into love. Not the kind born of convenience or circumstance, but the kind that grows quietly, persistently, in the spaces between truth and trust. Love, honest, unguarded, and real. The kind that isn't about grand announcements or sweeping declarations, but about choosing each other, every day, in every small moment. A choice that changed everything. And in the simple act of standing together, two worlds became one. This was no fairy tale, no sudden twist of fate, just a journey, imperfect, real, and true, where a poor girl who took the wrong ride found herself not lost, but exactly where she belonged, in the heart of a billionaire's world and the soul of his truth. 1 year can change everything, not because time alone is powerful, but because of the moments lived within it. A year filled with quiet mornings, with whispered hopes, with hands joined in purpose. Today she stands at the heart of a vibrant children's center, a place alive with laughter, stories, and possibility. It is a testament to all she has built, a living mosaic of dreams fulfilled and seeds sown. But behind the scenes, there is someone else, not in the spotlight, not demanding attention, but present in every meaningful way. Adrian, a man who once moved through life in glass towers and boardrooms, now found joy in the simplest acts, volunteering, helping, being quietly there. The children adore him, not for his wealth or status, but for the kindness in his eyes, the patience in his voice, and the way he shows up, fully, without flash, without fanfare. This day is more than a celebration of love. It is a promise, a commitment not just to each other, but to the world they are shaping together. A world where past divides matter less than shared futures, where two people from different worlds have chosen to build something new, hand in hand, heart with heart. And as the sun sets on this day, their story is no longer about mistakes or secrets, but about the power of honesty, presence, and love. A promise made quietly, but one that will echo far beyond this moment. From the wrong ride to the right place, a journey of discovery, of truth, and ultimately of home. Some moments don't demand grand gestures. They unfold quietly, gently, like a sunset fading into night. On one such evening, beneath a sky brushed with fading gold, Adrian offered something more than words, a journal, worn at the edges, filled with pages heavy with memory. Each entry a chapter of their shared journey, reflections written not just with ink, but with the weight of a heart forever changed. The pages told of moments ordinary and profound. The laughter in the library, the silence on the hilltop, the small acts of kindness unnoticed by the world. He had written of her, how she had altered the course of his life, how she had shown him a world beyond wealth and titles. And at the very end, a question, not asked with urgency, but with hope. Will you keep writing our story with me? Words simple, yet infinite in their meaning. A promise of chapters yet to come, of lives intertwined not by fate alone, but by choice. She looked up. Tears glistened in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of profound understanding. And with a smile that spoke of courage and commitment, she replied, "Only if we never skip the boring pages. Because love is not only about the moments that take our breath away, It's about embracing the everyday, the quiet, the imperfect, and choosing to turn each page together. In that moment, beneath the soft glow of twilight, two souls made a silent vow to write their story not as a fairy tale, but as a living testament to truth, resilience, and love. On a quiet stretch of coast, where the earth meets the sea in a timeless embrace, two lives came together, not with grandeur, but with the kind of simplicity that speaks volumes. Alina wore a dress made by hands that understood the meaning of care. Handmade stitches holding more than fabric, holding stories, hope, and the dreams of a future shared. Adrian stood barefoot on the sand, grounded not by wealth or titles, but by the weight of a love that had reshaped him. Their kiss was not for the cameras, nor for the eyes of the world. It was for the community, the friends, the children, the lives touched along the way. A silent promise witnessed by those who had seen the journey unfold. From a chance ride in the rain to the deep truth that brought them here. She took the wrong ride, but it led her exactly where she was always meant to go, into the heart of a man who never knew he needed to be seen, until she looked at him. Not every wrong turn is a mistake. Some are divine directions in disguise, and in that moment, two worlds became one, forever bound by a journey of trust, truth, and love. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join us for more powerful stories that remind us how truth and love can change everything. Share this video with someone who believes in second chances and the unexpected paths that lead us home. Comment below. What moment in your life felt like a wrong turn that changed everything? We'd love to hear your story. Together, let's keep the conversation going and inspire each other to trust the journey.